This is the story of a woman trapped with a sadistic husband. And the maid she hired to help her escape him. At least, that's what everyone believed.
The evening unfolds in a series of bad decisions. Andrew, loosened by too much wine, begins to confide in Millie. He speaks of Nina with a troubling frankness, saying things an employer should never share with an employee. He gets a phone call from her during dinner and hangs up, his expression weary. He says he loves Nina, but he can't understand how his marriage became this way. She used to be different, he laments. Now she does nothing but complain, refuses to work, and spoils Cecilia rotten. He leans in as if to share the worst part, but a waiter arrives at the table, interrupting the confession. Andrew then mentions, almost casually, that he was engaged to someone else right before he met Nina. He talks about how he and Nina haven't been intimate in so long. To his credit, he catches himself, a flicker of embarrassment crossing his face. He admits he overshared, that it was in bad taste. They realize they have both had far too much to drink. Andrew cannot drive them back to Long Island. The plan had been a simple drive there and back, not an overnight stay. He suggests getting 2 rooms at the Plaza Hotel, a simple solution. Millie, foggy with alcohol, wonders why they don't just take an Uber home, but the thought is lost as they stumble into a cab. The cab takes a corner too hard, and Millie falls against him. He kisses her, and God help her, she kisses him back. They sleep together. In the morning, he whispers that he doesn't regret it, but that it cannot happen again. It was really nice, he says, but it can't happen again. They return to the house long before Nina is due back from dropping Cecilia at summer camp. When Nina returns, her eyes are sharp. She asks Millie why no one answered the phone when she called the house at 11 o'clock the previous night. Millie explains she doesn't have a phone in her attic room and is forbidden from coming downstairs at night. She can't hear anything from up there. She didn't hear the phone. Nina then notes that Andrew didn't answer either. Later, Millie sends Andrew a quick text, a simple warning. Nina called the house last night. She has no doubt that Nina, who monitors her phone, has already read the message. Millie learns more about the mysterious gardener, Enzo. Andrew confides that he doesn't like the man. He is convinced Enzo understands far more English than he lets on. Andrew himself is fluent in French, a language close enough to Italian that he believes Enzo could make an effort. He resents that Enzo spends a disproportionate amount of time working on their back garden. When Millie points out they have the largest yard, Andrew dismisses the logic. He says Nina insists on keeping him, that he is the best. Millie finds this odd because she has observed that Enzo seems to actively avoid Nina, fleeing whenever she appears. She wonders what he is really doing, digging in the backyard day after day. Andrew receives a care package from his mother, Evelyn, filled with baby items. His mother does not yet know that they cannot have children. Andrew's casual words about Nina unsettle Millie. Using the past tense to speak of loving his wife feels like a telling slip. The tension in the house escalates. Nina sends Millie on an errand to the store, then calls the security guard to report a suspected shoplifter, ensuring Millie is harassed. She has also found the playbill from the Broadway show in Millie's room, proof of the outing. She confronts Millie, not just about the show, but with a devastating revelation. She knew all along that Millie was in prison. The implication hangs in the air. Why would she hire a convicted felon to live in her home and care for her daughter? She now holds this knowledge over Millie like a weapon, threatening not just to fire her, but to call the police and send her back to prison. One night, Millie creeps downstairs for water. She has never touched the 3 tiny water bottles Nina provided for her in her attic mini-fridge on her first day, a detail she keeps filed away. She finds Andrew in the kitchen, having a beer. They kiss again. This time, Nina sees them. She is watching from the shadows. The confrontation explodes during a summer thunderstorm. Nina is screaming at Millie, threatening to call the cops. Andrew steps in, his voice cold and final. He tells Nina they are done. He tells her to get out of the house. He reminds her of the tight prenup. The house is his. He is allowing her to live there, and now he is revoking her permission. He tells her to pack her bags and leave. Nina, defeated, packs and drives away into the storm. Cecilia is still at sleepaway camp. The house is empty. The moment Nina's taillights disappear, Andrew turns to Millie. The weeks of dancing around each other, the stolen kisses, the sexual tension, all of it culminates in a rush. They finally have time alone. The next morning, Millie wakes up in the master bed, in Nina's place. Andrew smiles and tells her he loves waking up next to her instead of her. Millie feels a chill. Nina is actively evil, but Andrew is a profoundly shitty person. She knows she will do anything at all to avoid going back to prison. A new layer of paranoia unfolds. One of the PTA mothers calls Millie and casually mentions how nice it is for Nina to let her track her all the time. Millie hangs up, her mind racing. She is being tracked. Enzo reappears. Andrew, still seething about the gardener's constant presence, marches out and fires him. He dismisses him with a curt, "Ciao, Enzo." Enzo simply nods and begins to pack his things. But as Andrew walks back inside, Enzo grabs Millie's arm. His dark eyes are wide, terrified. In clear, fluent English, with only a subtle accent, he hisses at her. "Millie, you must get out of here. You are in terrible danger." Her mouth falls open. The man who could barely string 2 words together has just spoken perfect sentences. He insists that Nina is not gone. Before he can say more, Andrew calls out for Millie, and Enzo releases her, melting away. Her day worsens. She starts getting calls from a blocked number. When she finally answers, a mechanical voice delivers a single warning: stay away from Andrew Winchester. She decides she is done with the attic. She is dating the man of the house. It's July on Long Island, the room is an oven, and the window is painted shut. She begins packing her things. Andrew finds her in the attic and agrees she should move downstairs. He offers to help her forget her bad day. They make love on her narrow cot. She wakes up alone. Andrew is gone. She needs to use the bathroom. She goes to the door and turns the handle. It is sticky, as usual. She turns it more firmly. It still doesn't turn. Panic rises in her chest. She presses her shoulder against the door, feeling the scratch marks splinter against her skin. She tries again. The door does not budge, not even a millimeter. The door is not stuck. It is locked from the outside. Part 2 begins. The narrative shifts. It is now told from Nina's point of view. Nina sits in a hotel room, dressed in a terry-cloth bathrobe, stretched out on a queen bed. She pulls out her phone and opens the tracking app she has been using for months, Find My Friends. She looks for Millie's location. Under her name, it reads, "Location not found." She smiles. Smart girl, but not smart enough. She takes a photograph of Andrew from her purse, lights it on fire, and drops it into the bathroom sink, watching it curl and blacken. It is her first real smile in almost 8 years. She reflects on her life. She met Andrew when she was his secretary. He was handsome and incredibly kind. They married quickly after a first date where he announced he was looking for a wife and wanted her to be that wife. She had a daughter to support. It felt like a dream. 3 months into the marriage, she missed her hair appointment. Andrew noticed her dark roots showing. He mentioned it, his voice neutral but his eyes cold. That night, he asked her to come up to the attic. He needed to show her where he kept some of his paperwork. She had never been up there, she was scared of attics, but she agreed. He locked her in. He told her she needed to understand the consequences of her actions. He demanded she pull out 100 strands of her own hair, with the root attached, and slide them under the door in an envelope. He wanted to see the follicle. He made her do it twice because some of the hairs were missing the root. She was postpartum, weak and starving. He left her with only 3 small water bottles. After 2 days, he gave her what looked like Advil. She was too weak to argue. She fell asleep. She woke up to a flurry of panicked texts from friends. A horrible feeling gripped her. She ran to the baby's room. Cecilia was gone. She heard the bathtub running. She found her baby propped up in the tub, drugged as the water rose. A paramedic burst in and saved the child. She was framed as a mother who had tried to drown her baby and then attempted suicide. She was sent to a psychiatric ward for 8 months. For a long time, she believed she was crazy, that she had hallucinated the attic, the hair pulling, the imprisonment. How could Andrew, the kind, handsome man, have done those things? When she came home, the torture resumed, but with a new pattern. Andrew's mother, Evelyn, was a cold, controlling woman. If a light was left on, Evelyn would berate Andrew for wasting energy. Andrew would absorb the criticism, but that night, Nina would be locked in the attic as punishment for the infraction, even if she hadn't committed it. This had been her life for 8 years. Cecilia, now 9, was complicit in her own way. She didn't fully understand, but she knew that if she didn't obey her father perfectly, her mother would be punished. She wore the frilly white dresses he chose for her, even though she played sports and got dirty. She was mildly allergic to peanuts. Sometimes, to teach her a lesson, Andrew would put peanut butter in her food, and she would suffer the itchy rash, but the jar could never be thrown out. Enzo entered the picture as a potential lifeline. He pretended not to speak English, so Nina saw him as the only person she could confide in. Any friend she made, Andrew would pull aside and warn that she was a lunatic fresh from a mental hospital. They would always believe him. So she went to Enzo in the garden and, in a rush, told him her husband was a monster, that he locked her in an attic and tortured her. Enzo's eyes widened with understanding, and he asked if she was okay. She realized he understood everything. She ran away, mortified, but the connection was made. Enzo, whose own sister Antonia had been killed by an abusive husband, became her ally. He tried to help her escape, arranging for fake passports and plane tickets for her and Cecilia. Andrew found out, likely through his hidden cameras. The escape was foiled. So Nina devised a new plan. She needed a replacement. She needed someone Andrew would fall in love with, someone who could take her place and free her. She hired Millie. She humiliated Millie constantly, knowing Andrew was attracted to victims, to women he could protect. She orchestrated the Broadway ticket disaster, ensuring they would be alone together in the city. Everything she did was to make them fall in love. When Andrew finally kicked her out, she was elated. But Enzo refused to let her go. He loved her, but he could not leave another woman to the fate they had tried to escape. They had to go back for Millie. Part 3 returns to Millie's point of view. She has been locked in the attic for days. There is a bucket in the closet for her to relieve herself. Andrew's punishment is for a minor infraction. She removed some books from his shelf and didn't put them back correctly. He brings 3 heavy books and orders her to lie on the floor with them balanced on her stomach for 3 hours. She thinks he is joking. After days of this, she finally complies, seething with rage. When he opens the door to let her out, she is ready. She has found something in the closet, hidden away. Pepper spray. She sprays him directly in the face. The narrative shifts back to Nina. She had done a thorough background check on Millie before hiring her. She had been sent to a boarding school for children with anger issues. She had a record from her teens, pushing a kid off monkey bars, slashing a teacher's tires. At the school, she witnessed a friend being sexually assaulted by a football player. She grabbed a paperweight and smashed his skull, killing him. She was sentenced to 15 years and served 10. She was perfect. Nina hadn't just hired a replacement. She had left a copy of the attic key in the room. She had left the pepper spray in the blue bucket in the closet. She didn't hire Millie to take her place. She hired her to kill Andrew. Millie just didn't know it yet. Enzo, armed with the pepper spray, manages to subdue Andrew and lock him in the attic. She turns the tables. She forces him to endure the same tortures. He must balance books on his stomach. He has no water. Days pass. He begs. She refuses. Meanwhile, Nina picks up Cecilia from camp and tells her they are going to Disneyland, that they are leaving this dump forever. Enzo intercepts her, pleading with her to go back and check on Millie. She agrees, but on one condition. Nina drives back to the house. It is eerily quiet. She assumes Millie is still in the attic. She doesn't know if Millie ever got out. She digs the spare key to the attic door out of her purse, fits it into the lock, and swings the door open. The 2 bare light bulbs flicker, illuminating the space. She sees Andy, or what used to be Andy. She stares for a solid minute. "Hello, Nina." Nina whirls around. Millie is standing behind her, the bottle of pepper spray pointed directly at her face. She tells her to put it down, that she isn't going to hurt her. Andrew has been locked in the attic for 5 or 6 days. Millie has lost count. He is dead. Nina asks how long he has been dead. Millie admits she was too scared to check, terrified he was playing dead, so she just left him there. Nina checks his pulse. There is none. Millie's face crumples. She is going back to prison. Nina makes up her mind. No, Millie is not going to prison. She wasn't even here. Nina will tell the police she gave Millie the week off. She will say she was here all week. She has already been accused of trying to kill someone before. She'll be fine. Millie needs to leave. Millie disappears down the stairs, leaving Nina alone in the house with Andy's dead eyes staring at the ceiling. There is only one thing left to do. She picks up her phone and calls the police. The police swarm the house. A detective questions her. She sticks to her story. She thought Andrew was on a business trip. They had recently separated after a fight, so she wasn't living there. She has no idea how he ended up locked in the attic. The detective notes the severe bruising on Andrew's lower body. He asks if it sounds plausible that a grown man locked himself in an attic and inflicted those injuries on himself. She says that he could be that erratic that you didn't know him. The detective leans in. I might not know him, he says, but my daughter did. Her name is Kathleen. She and your husband were engaged a long time ago. The breakup was rough on her. She moved far away, changed her name, hasn't dated since. I always wondered what Andrew Winchester did to my daughter. When I transferred out here, I started poking around. I found it interesting that you claimed he locked you in an attic, but nobody could verify it. Looks like nobody really tried. The Winchesters used to have a lot of pull with the cops out here, but not with me. Nina's jaw hangs open. If you ask me, the detective continues, that attic's a hazard. Seems far too easy to get locked up there. He leans back. It's a shame what happened to your husband. I'm sure my buddy in the coroner's office will agree. It'll have to be a cautionary tale, won't it? Yes, Nina finally manages. A cautionary tale. The detective gives her one last long look, and she realizes with stunning clarity that she is not going to walk out of here in handcuffs. At the wake, Andrew's parents approach Nina. She braces for an accusation. Instead, Andrew's father quietly tells her to let them know if she ever needs anything. Then his mother, Evelyn, speaks. She mentions the missing teeth. Nina's heart seizes. But Evelyn's voice is calm, almost approving. She says she always told Andrew how important dental hygiene was. If he didn't brush, there would be a punishment. There is always a punishment when you break the rules. She used pliers on his baby teeth to make him understand. She is glad Nina stepped up and taught him the lesson he never learned. She makes one last adjustment to her son's white shirt collar and walks away. In the epilogue, Millie sits in a new kitchen, in a new house. She is being interviewed for another housemaid position. The woman across from her, a stranger, explains that a friend recommended her. Millie's eyes drift to a knife rack on the counter. The woman shifts, and Millie notices the faint shadows of bruises on her arm. The woman asks if she thinks she could work for her. Millie looks at the bruises, then back at the woman. A slow, knowing smile touches her lips. You know what? Millie says. Yeah, I absolutely think I could work for you.